skull move a wee bit.
You're under arrest. You're under arrest. Stop resisting.
I just want to tell you guys this. The best times 10 Conor McGregor you've ever seen right now. Better than he was when he was in his prime. The most focused, wants to do everything right. I mean, he's training his ass off each and every day. He's eating right. He's going to church. He's doing everything he's supposed to do. This is not a Conor McGregor that we've seen in the past couple of years. This is the best Conor McGregor that I've personally ever seen. And I'm talking on TV and everywhere. I've never seen a Conor McGregor like this, more focused than I ever thought he ever could get, but he is.
What's the David Feldman confidence meter at on us seeing him fight at the White House this summer?
Conor had said publicly, you know, that his contract was a little shaky because of the pay-per-view point that he had in there, but I'm sure that the UFC wants Conor McGregor to fight. He's going to fight, and they're going to make it work, and it makes sense for him to fight the White House. So my confidence level is probably around a 99%.
We're getting into the game here. All right.
My strong rockets. These are missiles, yeah. These are fucking missiles. I'm 100%. This is, yeah? We're going in here 100%. I'm going into this fight 100% Conor McGregor. Not 92. 100% Conor McGregor. So it has to be really meticulous. We were right there with the last one. As a unit, we do it, right?
On Sarukian, is he the hottest guy right now? I don't see anybody controlling the media as well as Sarukian. Sarukian's getting more headlines and doing more clicks on social media than Ilia Topuria, just by example. I mean, I feel like
the fight game isn't just hot right now. It's absolutely nuclear. And we're not talking about some manufactured drama that disappears by next week or clickbait headlines designed to grab your attention for 30 seconds. What's happening in MMA right now is exposing the brutal truth about what separates real champions from social media fighters. Conor McGregor is sitting at the center of this storm, and the decisions he makes in the next few months will either resurrect his legacy or bury it forever. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. The flashy Instagram posts and Twitter wars might get you followers, but they don't win you fights. And McGregor is about to learn that lesson the hard way.
Sarukian has now made headlines. Sarukian works with Coach Cal. That's a piece of the story, because Sarukian came out yesterday and said, I'm the #1 contender. I am to fight for a belt. But if there's a logjam at 155, fine, I'll just go to 45 and fight for the belt. And I don't know how much he meant it, but these things are interesting. Once they're said, they become...
Here's the reality that's hitting the MMA world like a freight train. True champions operate on a completely different level than everyone else. We're talking about fighters who view every setback, every moment of doubt, every brutal training session as nothing more than fuel for their inevitable rise to dominance. This isn't about talent anymore. Talent gets you noticed. What we're discussing is combat IQ combined with an unbreakable mental framework that treats pain like a daily vitamin. So let me ask you something that cuts straight to the bone. Is McGregor chasing another moment of glory, another viral knockout that gets replayed on SportsCenter? Or is he actually fighting for something that will outlast his career, something that makes people remember his name 50 years from now? Because if that hunger for legendary status isn't driving every single rep, every sparring session, every sacrifice he makes, then he's not training to be a champion. He's training to be entertainment, and entertainment gets old fast.
He is serious is because he then justified it, and he was talking about Coach Cal. All he said, though, is my coach We did the math. We can do it. And Coach Cal is a calculus genius, and he breaks everything down, and calories in, calories out, and monitors your workouts. And I'm just sharing for you that. What do you think of that? I mean, this kind of went wild online. My own phone was getting text messages. Like, James, I was on an airplane, and James Madison has led me. I was like, did you see this about Sarukian? And, I stopped what I was doing.
Now here's where this gets absolutely fascinating from a scientific standpoint. Elite champions don't just train their bodies. They literally rewire their cellular structure through a process that most people can't even comprehend. We're talking about a regimen where every calorie consumed serves a strategic purpose, where every movement pattern gets drilled until it becomes involuntary muscle memory, where every mental visualization session builds unshakable confidence in their own abilities. This goes way beyond showing up to the gym and hitting pads for an hour. Champions like Khabib Nurmagomedov submit themselves to what can only be described as the systematic destruction and reconstruction of human limitations. They don't hope they're ready when fight night arrives. They know with absolute certainty that they've done everything possible to guarantee victory. So when McGregor talks about moving weight classes and chasing titles, that's great for headlines. But it has to be backed by that deep, unshakable knowledge that comes from preparation most people would consider insane.
Can you get a headline? Is that something that people believe in, that people are interested in? Check and check. He had those boxes. A next step, but it's a much higher step, is to get the guy with the belt or the guy with the opportunity to respond. He already got Lopez. I imagine we're going to hear from Volkanovski anytime now.
But get this, McGregor isn't just asking for fights anymore. He's orchestrating the entire conversation around his comeback. Think about the strategic genius behind this approach. He's not waiting for matchmakers to throw him a bone or hoping some contender calls him out on social media. Instead, he's actively painting the target, forcing the entire MMA media ecosystem to revolve around his desires and his timeline. When he drops names like Jorge Masvidal in interviews, that's not random. That's championship-level psychological warfare. He's leveraging years of built-up animosity, countless hours of behind-the-scenes preparation, and an understanding of exactly which buttons to push to generate maximum attention. This is where most fighters crack under the pressure of expectation. They get overwhelmed by the spotlight and forget what got them there in the first place. True champions either get forged into something harder in that fire, or they get exposed as pretenders who couldn't handle the heat.
He's got all this different potential parity. But that doesn't answer the question on what you think about that, because in many ways, does it solve a problem? Sure it does. We acknowledge in this sport, Arman is the number one contender. We acknowledge in the sport that Arman should be fighting for a world title. So how are we going to do it? Just move down to 145. Well, but we also acknowledge that Lerone Murphy should be fighting for a title. We acknowledge that Elo.
Here's the kicker that most people completely miss about the current landscape. While there are definitely skilled fighters grinding their way up the rankings through traditional methods, earning their shots by beating whoever gets put in front of them, the undeniable reality is this. A McGregor event has become its own championship belt that transcends any gold trophy the UFC can hand out. We're not talking about athletic competition anymore. This has evolved into something that captures global attention in a way that most title fights simply cannot match. It's about embracing the chaos of superstardom while maintaining the skills to back up every word you speak. The biggest, most valuable championship isn't always the literal belt around your waist. Sometimes it's proving you can command the world's attention and then deliver a performance that justifies every bit of hype surrounding your name. That's a fight for something much more valuable than money or recognition. That's a fight for immortality.
I'm just wondering, like, what do you think about that? Do you believe that a bigger guy in Arman, do you believe if he cuts down, he therefore takes precedent? Do you believe that? Because when Ilia Topuria, who wasn't just the number one guy, he was the champion of the world, moved to 55, there was a little bit of pushback by you, the community. There's a little bit of pushback that just said, hey, listen, you haven't proved yourself here yet. Khabib himself said, we're not going to fight him. Speaking for Islam, this is before Islam had left the way. He said, we're not going to fight this guy.
And here's what's driving me absolutely crazy about how people are analyzing McGregor's current situation. Everyone keeps looking backward at his past accomplishments, his previous championship reigns, those iconic moments that built his legend. But that's history now. Beautiful, important history that secured his place in MMA forever, but still just history. The unforgiving truth about combat sports is that respect gets earned fresh every single time you step into that octagon. You think fighters like Khabib or current champions care about what McGregor did 5 years ago when they're preparing to potentially face him? They're studying his recent footage, analyzing his current physical condition, looking for signs of decline or weakness they can exploit. McGregor can't coast on past glories anymore. He has to earn back the respect of active fighters who have watched him struggle in recent years. Champions don't just win fights. They make you believe that they're operating on a level that most humans can't reach. So the question becomes whether McGregor can recapture that aura of invincibility that made him seem unstoppable during his rise to stardom.
Yesterday when Armand said it, this got a great reception. Everybody loved it. Ariel loved it. I loved it. James Madison loved it. I mean, I'm just sharing. But now that we've had a day and we've thought about it, do you still love it? And I think Armand is going to be just fine. I mean, I think that the final conclusion, he's going to be just fine. Stay at 155. The opportunity's coming. I think that that's where we're at. But he's now created another dialogue. So the way this works is we've got to exhaust all options.
Now forget about sitting around waiting for opportunities to come to you. What McGregor understands better than almost anyone is how to ruthlessly summon destiny into existence by bending the entire narrative to serve his purposes. Every statement he makes, every social media post, every interview becomes a calculated move designed to generate maximum impact across multiple platforms. When he mentions Masvidal specifically, that's not a coincidence or random call-out. He's loading every piece of ammunition in his promotional arsenal and firing it strategically at targets that will create the biggest explosions. True champions don't just prepare physically for their fights. They shape public expectation and media coverage to create an environment where their victory seems inevitable. You might think you're watching someone politely request a fight booking. What's actually happening is McGregor is throwing a grenade into the UFC's carefully planned matchmaking system and demanding an immediate response that serves his interests first.
He's in front of the media. But, and there is a but, I've never liked the idea of, I want to fight for a championship. I've never liked that approach more than a specific guy. Than a specific, put your finger in the chest of Ilia Topuria. Oh, by the way, he happens to be champion. It happens to also be a championship opportunity. Boy, I hadn't even really thought of that.
But here's where it gets really wild, and this is something most casual fans don't understand about elite-level fighting. Forget the championship belt itself for a moment. A true champion doesn't chase gold trinkets or trophy ceremonies. They hunt specific opponents who represent everything they need to prove about themselves. They've got a particular fighter they need to break, a specific legacy they need to surpass, a definitive statement they need to make with their fists. The belt becomes just a side effect, a bonus prize that comes automatically when you achieve total dominance over the division's best fighters. Their finishes aren't just victories. They're violent declarations of superiority that leave no room for debate or controversy. This means McGregor isn't just pursuing another payday or another main event slot. He's analyzing every angle of his potential comeback, studying each vulnerability in his potential opponents, planning every strike and every movement with surgical precision that would make a chess grandmaster jealous. If you're getting distracted by the lights and the crowd noise and the celebrity atmosphere, then you're not operating at championship level, and that difference is everything in this game.
I find that personal grudge approach to be stronger, but Arman's in a unique spot. And one of the things about the way that Arman is playing this is to make sure that he lets everyone know he doesn't care. That if you're trying to hold him down or you're trying to punish him for whatever it might be, he doesn't care. So, I like it. I think that this is wise. But 145.
So here's the final piece that ties everything together. And this is what separates McGregor's current situation from every other comeback story in combat sports history. That controlled rage you see building in his interviews and social media posts isn't just raw emotion or uncontrolled anger. For someone operating at his level, that fury becomes the fire that forges him into a sharpened weapon designed for one specific purpose. This represents confrontation that transcends the simple physical limits of cage fighting and demands something approaching total psychological warfare. An opponent like Masvidal brings legitimate street fighting mentality and years of high-level experience that can't be dismissed or overlooked. But in the storm of a 5-round championship fight, the fighter who remains completely centered and mentally unshakable amidst absolute chaos is the one who walks out with everything he came for. So let me break down the ultimate lesson we need to take from this entire situation, because it reveals something fundamental about what separates legends from everyone else in combat sports. It's not about the shiny championship belts they might win, or the money they make, or the fame that comes with victory. It's about something far more primal that you can see burning in a fighter's eyes long before they ever step foot inside that octagon. True champions aren't chasing belts or paychecks or social media followers. They're pursuing the complete destruction of everything that stands between them and their vision of greatness. They're forging stories that will outlast their careers, overcoming obstacles that would break normal people, remaining completely unaffected by chaos, because that's precisely where genuine strength gets forged into something unbreakable. This is where you transcend your limitations and become truly legendary. So here's my question for you, and I want you to drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think McGregor still has that championship fire burning inside him, or is this just another publicity stunt from someone trying to recapture past glory? If this breakdown helped you understand what's really at stake in his potential comeback, smash that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into the fight game, and hit that notification bell because this story is just getting started. I'll see you in the next one. What's absolutely mind-blowing about this entire McGregor situation is how it's exposing the fundamental difference between fighters who understand legacy and those who are just chasing quick wins. Because here's what nobody in the MMA media wants to acknowledge. McGregor isn't just planning his comeback around beating one opponent or winning one fight. He's orchestrating a complete resurrection of his brand that requires him to demolish every single question mark that's been hanging over his career. Think about the strategic brilliance of this approach. Every loss, every setback, every moment where people doubted his abilities becomes ammunition for the most devastating comeback story in combat sports history. But only if he can actually deliver when the lights are brightest and the pressure is most intense. This brings us to something that's driving me absolutely insane about how people are analyzing the current welterweight division. Everyone keeps talking about rankings and title shots and who deserves what based on recent wins. But they're completely missing the seismic shift that's happening right underneath their noses. The entire landscape of that division gets turned upside down the moment McGregor announces his return. We're not talking about some aging veteran trying to squeeze out one last payday. This is a former double champion who still moves the needle like nobody else in the sport. When he mentions Masvidal as a potential opponent, that's not just picking a name out of a hat. That's identifying the perfect storm of skill, reputation, and star power that creates the kind of fight people will be talking about for decades. But here's where it gets really fascinating from a psychological warfare standpoint. McGregor has spent years studying not just his potential opponents, but the entire ecosystem of modern MMA promotion. He understands exactly how to weaponize social media, how to manipulate press cycles, how to generate the kind of buzz that forces the UFC's hand in ways that traditional contenders simply cannot match. While other fighters are posting training videos and hoping someone notices their hard work, McGregor drops one strategic comment, and suddenly every MMA journalist in the world is writing articles about his potential return. That's not luck or natural charisma. That's the calculated precision of someone who's mastered the art of controlling narratives in ways that most people can't even comprehend. Now let's talk about something that reveals the true genius of McGregor's current position. He's not desperately calling out champions or begging for title shots like most fighters in his situation would be doing. Instead, he's creating his own championship tier that exists above the traditional ranking system. Think about the psychological impact of this strategy. When you're operating at that level, you don't chase opportunities. You create them through sheer force of will and strategic positioning. Every statement becomes a chess move designed to corner his opponents, and the UFC into giving him exactly what he wants on his terms. This is championship-level thinking that goes way beyond just being good at fighting. This is about understanding the entire business of combat sports and using that knowledge as another weapon in your arsenal. And here's what's absolutely crucial to understand about the current state of McGregor's career trajectory. The fighters who are calling him washed up or claiming he's lost a step are making a fundamental mistake that could cost them everything. They're judging him based on past performances instead of recognizing the dangerous evolution that happens when a true champion gets backed into a corner. History is littered with fighters who underestimated legends making comebacks and paid the ultimate price for that miscalculation. McGregor isn't just training to get back to his old level. He's preparing to reach heights that nobody has seen from him before. That's what separates real champions from pretenders. They don't just bounce back from adversity. They use it as fuel to become something even more dangerous than they were at their peak. But get this, and this is where most people completely miss the deeper strategy at play. McGregor's potential return isn't just about him proving he can still compete at the highest level. It's about demonstrating something far more valuable in the long term. He's showing every fighter coming up through the ranks exactly how to build a career that transcends the limitations of traditional athletic competition. We're talking about creating a brand so powerful that it generates opportunities regardless of current ranking or recent performance. That's a lesson worth millions of dollars to fighters who are smart enough to pay attention. The blueprint he's creating for leveraging star power and strategic positioning will be studied by combat sports athletes for generations. Now here's the part that's going to separate the real fight fans from the casual observers. When McGregor does announce his official return, every single detail of his preparation is going to be scrutinized like never before. His training footage, his sparring partners, his physical conditioning, his mental state during interviews. The entire MMA world will be looking for any sign of weakness or decline that they can exploit or criticize. This level of pressure would crush most fighters before they ever made it to fight night. But for someone who's built his entire career on performing when the stakes are highest, this scrutiny becomes just another advantage. The spotlight that blinds other fighters is exactly where McGregor has always done his best work. And let's address the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about directly. The financial implications of a McGregor return are so massive that they actually change the entire economic landscape of the UFC for months. We're not talking about a slight bump in pay-per-view numbers or a modest increase in ticket sales. A properly promoted McGregor event generates the kind of revenue that funds entire divisions and creates opportunities for dozens of other fighters. This economic reality gives him negotiating power that goes way beyond what his current ranking might suggest. When your return can literally change the financial trajectory of the entire organization, you're not just another fighter asking for a booking. You're a business partner with leverage that most champions will never possess. But here's what's really driving this entire situation, and it's something that reveals the true character of elite-level competitors. McGregor isn't coming back because he needs the money, or because he's bored, or because someone convinced him it would be a good idea. He's returning because there's unfinished business that's been eating at him every single day since his last fight. True champions can't rest when there are still questions about their abilities or doubts about their place in history. That internal fire doesn't get satisfied by past accomplishments or external validation. It demands constant proof that you're still operating at a level that separates you from everyone else in your sport. This is what drives legends to keep competing long after they've already secured their legacies. So here's the ultimate question that's going to define everything about McGregor's potential comeback, and it's something that goes way deeper than just wins and losses. Can he recapture that aura of invincibility that made him seem like he was operating on a different level than his opponents? Because that psychological edge was always his greatest weapon. When fighters stepped into the octagon with him, they were already half defeated by the sheer force of his presence and reputation. Rebuilding that mental dominance after recent setbacks requires more than just physical preparation. It demands a complete reconstruction of how the MMA world perceives his abilities and his place in the current landscape. That's a challenge that would intimidate most fighters. For McGregor, it's exactly the kind of mountain he was born to climb.